Hi, and welcome back to Football Made Simple. The Europa League took centre stage as Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's United prepared to take on Unai Emery's Villareal in Gdansk. Both sides ended their league seasons in patchy form, but had real reasons for optimism coming into the final. And in the end, it was Villareal who walked away with the trophy, thanks to a penalty shootout win after goals from Moreno and Cavani in normal time. The XG in normal time showed that it was a tight encounter. But what tactics did both managers use? Let's take a look. Here's how Solskjaer and Emery lined up, and to get formations like this, you can check out our video sponsor, the OneFootball app. The OneFootball app will give you formations like this, news and so much more for the Champions League final and throughout the Euros. And the best part is you can get it absolutely free through the link in the description below. We'll first look at United as they had more possession. United generally looked to build shorter, with De Gea only playing 11 long balls compared to Ruli's 28. Both centre-backs dropped alongside De Gea, and Villareal's front two would be ready to press at times. And with Villareal naturally 3 versus 2 down in midfield, if both pivots had committed to the press, Fernandes would have space to operate. So instead, Capoue tended to stay deeper, whilst a winger would tuck onto the second pivot. If the ball was going into one of the pivots, he would then close them down. But if it went to a fullback instead, the winger would shift wide and Parejo would look to cover the ball side pivot. This was a pressing mechanism often repeated in open play, with Capoue deep, so Villareal's defensive shape could at times look like a 4-1-3-2 with tucked in wingers. But in general open play, Villareal were much more withdrawn. Again, they were naturally handicapped in the midfield, so the front two would look to cut out United's double pivot, allowing Capoue and Parejo to stay deeper to create a hypothetical 4 versus 3. But of course, United looked to adapt their shape, with McTominay initially dropping to right centre-back, which would allow Wan-Bissaka and Shaw to push up much higher, and as a result, both Greenwood and Rashford operated as inside forwards, often in the half spaces. In the first half in particular, Fernandes would also push high, so United looked as though they had a front 6 at times. This could have hypothetically forced the Villareal midfield deep to cover, giving Pogba more room in which to operate. But with Villareal's front two so deep, they couldn't achieve this. It could also have created 2 versus 1s out wide, but we saw Villareal being willing to shift to a back 6, with the wingers dropping deep to create a man versus man situation and cancel out that option. So, with their most creative man stuck high as a forward, he wouldn't see much of the ball, so United looked toothless at times. And Fernandes, despite playing an advanced position, is usually in the top 3 for touches for United, but as a result of this shape, today he was only 8th. But as the game wore on, and especially the first half, Fernandes began to drop deeper and to the left to see more of the ball. And it should be noted that early on Capoue was almost man-marking Fernandes, so he would be drawn out of position at times, with the United forward then moving into the space created. But wanting to protect Zone 14, Villareal shifted strategy, with Capoue now staying deep and Pino instead pressing Fernandes in this wide region. And this did benefit United at times, as now Shaw and Rashford would have a 2 versus 1 out wide against the fullback, where they could look to combine. But for the most part, they were unable to make the most of it. But another problem now was their 2 most creative players were playing in front of Real's deep block rather than between the lines, so they found it hard to create. The second half was slightly more progressive, with Fernandes mainly operating off the right, and with McTominay deeper during the progression, Fernandes could operate between the lines more. But United's best moments came on the rare occasions that the wingers got into 1v1s to take on their men. But sitting so deep had disadvantages for Villareal. Instead of having two forwards high, who they could quickly transition to with longer balls, they had to construct intricate moves from deep to try and get out. And at times they did manage this, especially when United had committed men high up. But in general, Villareal were more reactive, but let's touch on them in possession. Initially, Villareal looked to build up short with both centre-backs splitting deep. But United were quick in the press, and Greenwood would tuck in from the right to join Cavani, with Fernandes staying central. So, the outlet ball was often to the wing-back. And Wan-Bissaka would be able to commit to the press, as importantly, McTominay deeper would often shift across to the right to cover the winger. With Fernandes now covering the ball side pivot, there would be limited options for Villareal, so they were often forced to go long. And going long was successful at times, due to using two forwards who would work in close proximity, with one looking to flick it on to the other. Bacca and Moreno won a solid 5 aerial duels between them, compared to United's centre-backs 7. But at times, Villareal struggled badly to hold on to the ball in midfield, as they were constantly swarmed by United's midfield when they were outnumbered, and as a result they often lost the ball here. And Emery bringing on Coquelin when they had just conceded was vital, as it helped them to stem the tide, with Coquelin moving wide right, allowing Pino to move more central and create a 4-2-3-1 to match United's midfield 3. But overall, Emery's plan worked well, ceding possession to United, who are notoriously great on the break but struggle to create for themselves at times. United's lack of creativity came back to bite them, hardly creating any clear-cut chances in open play, with Cavani hopping onto a deflected shot which accounted for 0.51 of their XG. But what else did you notice? We only covered the normal time tactics, so let me know what else you saw tactically. And if you want even more content whilst helping to support the channel, feel free to check out my Patreon. There's a load of exclusive videos on there, such as my Premier League Team of the Season, Champions League final predictions, as well as early access to other videos. And you can check that out at patreon.com/footballmadesimple, or click the link in the top right. And a special thanks to my newest Patreons, Philip Jogastin and Ashraf Fauzi, for their support on the Ultra tier. But that's all for today, and remember, keep it simple.